softly crying voice. "Wonderful. All right, what am I in for?" Watterson's eyes danced. "Feeling a bit squeamish again, are we?" Heat rose into her cheeks. She wasn't squeamish about most things. She was a doctor, for Pete's sake, but she hated the aforementioned creepy stuff. No doubt the result of her older brother dragging her to too many horror films when she was a kid. She narrowed her eyes on Watterson. "Last case we worked on, Detective, some cult freaks had stripped all of the skin off the corpse's body." He held up a hand. "It's nothing like that this time, I swear." Fishing a pack of matches out of his breast pocket, he went on to explain. "A couple of bad guys climbed in through the bedroom window of the 15-year-old daughter and tried to snag her." He opened the pack and tugged out a match. Her father heard her screams, rampaged in with a shotgun, and filled one of the perps with a load of buckshot. She groaned softly. "Lovely. Don't worry." He struck the match and held the flame to the tip of his cigarette. "The scene is surprisingly unbloody. That's why you're here." She plucked the cigarette out of his mouth and mashed it into a plant. "You do know that you're the only person left in California who smokes, don't you?" She headed down the hall and entered a room that was clearly a girl's, and a girl who for once hadn't gone the way of the goth. Lacy lampshades, white eyelet bedspread, posters of Taylor Swift, Taylor Lautner, and, second place to Matthew McConaughey, Brad Pitt. Against the backdrop of all this innocence, the black-clad body sprawled out under the window was a grotesque stain. 2 other men were in the room. Pablo Ramirez, a Padres baseball cap perched backward on his head, and a skinny kid. Okay, an adult, but one who looked fresh out of science camp for a day of dress-up in his daddy's navy blue suit. Watterson gestured to him. "This is Silas Thornton, CSI." She nodded to the CI and moved over to the corpse, stopping at its feet to... What the hell? She'd never seen anything like this. The guy was a wreck, 6 bullet-sized craters in his chest, a few more peppering his thighs, and yet there wasn't a single drop of blood on him. Not anywhere, for that matter. Odder still, the front of the guy's black shirt was completely eaten away, the fabric of his pants nearly in the same condition, and there were holes dotting the carpet beneath him as if something acidic had dripped off of him and onto it. Jesus, this wasn't just an unbloody scene. It was impossibly bloodless. She looked at Watterson. The body was drained? For what sick purpose, she didn't want to know. Cult freaks were such psychos. Evidence suggests it wasn't. She arched her brows at him in a what-now expression. Watterson gestured, a hint of wryness slanting his mouth. "You want to take a look?" "At what? You're aware that I deal in actual physical blood, right, Detective? The kind of stuff that can be viewed under a microscope and put in a centrifuge?" Another smile tried to make it onto Watterson's mouth. "Just give it your best guess, Doc." Sighing, she marched over to the body and crouched down. The dead guy was young, maybe only 19 or 20, his features smooth and adolescent despite a stern chin and cruel-looking lips. He had a tattoo on his face, black flames crawling up his left jaw like rotten ivy. Biting back an ugh, she opened her medical bag and snapped on a pair of latex gloves, then dug out a scalpel. She grabbed the body's wrist. "Watch out," Watterson warned. She glanced up. Watterson nodded at the corpse's hand. "The ring on the perp's finger will give you one hell of a shock if you touch it." "You're kidding. Who in the world booby-trapped a ring?" She turned the corpse's wrist to get a better view of it, catching the sparkle of a strange red crystal in the center. Shimmering and undulating, the thing looked like it was filled with some sort of boiling liquid, or as if it lived and breathed. God, this night was reaching new levels of creepy. Steering clear of the ring, she carefully cut into the corpse's wrist. The vein was empty, not even a trace of blood in it. Absolutely nothing. She sat back on her heels and slowly peeled off her gloves. Weirder and weirder. "I can't think of anything that would leave a vein totally stripped. Maybe some chemical? But I really don't know. You need to get the body on a table and have an ME do a thorough autopsy plus a full chem panel." The CSI pounced on that. "That's exactly what I said." She looked at Silas. "Did you?" She shifted her eyes over to Watterson. Watterson met her gaze without expression. A flush of heat rolled up the back of her neck. "I see." She threw her scalpel and gloves into her medical bag and snapped it closed. "I'm sorry I couldn't have been more help." She came stiffly to her feet. "Good luck with the case." She spun on her heel and headed through the door, her stride.